What's going on, you gamers? Today we're going to be jumping back into some more Lies of P, and this time we're going to be taking a look at some of the best amulets in the game and which ones you should be aiming for in order to get the most from your builds. So if that interests you, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today we're back with some more Lies of P content, and this time I'm going to be going over my top 10 picks for the best amulets in the game. Now there are a whole bunch of amulets that you can find during your playthroughs, some of which are absolutely amazing, others are a little bit hit and miss, to be perfectly honest. Some I'd probably say aren't worth equipping at all, and others you're going to struggle if you don't actually equip them. So I'm going to be chucking out my top 10 picks that can help you during your gameplay. The first one is going to be a nice, simple, easy one to use, and that's going to be the Life Amulet. If you're like me and you need a bit of extra HP because these guys hit ridiculously hard later on, then this amulet may well be the one for you. It gives you around about 7% extra HP, and it's just a nice easy one to equip, especially early on. If you're not able to invest many points into your vitality, this may be one you want to chuck on your build. Over to another one that I found I definitely needed at some points, and that's going to be the Carrier's Amulet. This is going to mean that you can carry more weight on your character, you're not going into that over encumbered or the heavy status, which makes you roll terribly. You do your fat rolls, you get hit an awful lot, and it's something that you really want to be trying to aim to get under. So I found that the Carrier's Amulet helped me at certain stages before I could invest enough points into my capacity in order to stay in that comfortable weight limit. Over to 3 amulets that I'm gonna kind of class as one. They all do the same thing but for different enemy types, and that's going to be your Carcass Amulet, your Puppet Destroyer's Amulet, and your Murderer Puppet's Amulet. All of these are going to give you a flat damage increase against your foes. It's roughly around about 10% extra damage, so if you know you're coming up against a tough boss or you're in an area with a certain type, say for example you got your fleshy carcass types, then equipping this can really help you to take them down a whole bunch faster. Now over to an amulet that I didn't realise was actually as good as it is, and that's going to be your Patience Amulet. This increases your stamina recovery period speed, and it means that you're able to recover, which pretty much means if you're like me and you swing away far too often and your stamina bar is completely depleted, sometimes you can be at a bit of a loss, you'll get hit, you can't dodge. This allows you to get your stamina back much faster, and I found it to be a really good amulet in order to maintain pressure and not fall over quite as often. Speaking about not falling over quite as often, next up we have the Iron Wall Amulet. This one is a nice simple one to equip, but it's one that's going to give you a nice bit of damage reduction. Roughly 8.5% extra physical damage reduction is definitely nothing to be overlooked, and on top of some of your other items, this can really help you out, especially late game or going into New Game Plus. If you're finding that you're taking a bit of damage and maybe you're not the best at perfect blocking, then this is one you probably want to invest in whenever you're in tricky situations or those tougher boss encounters. Over to one of my favourite amulets in the game. This one is a complete all-rounder, and that's going to be the Blue Guardianship Amulet. This is going to increase 3 stats at once, so it's going to give you a nice bit of HP. It's also going to give you some stamina and a little bit of extra Legion arm. Roughly 5%, 9% and 7% to each of them respectively. If you find yourself lacking in some certain areas, this can well be worth putting on, and I think it's one you could pretty much chuck on any build just to make your life a little bit easier overall. Now another pick, and this won't be for everyone, but the Veteran's Amulet is amazing for anyone who really wants to be speccing into their Legion arm builds. This is going to increase your max Legion, allowing you to get more uses out of your Legion arm, so if you find yourself using that very often, then this is one you may want to chuck on because it gives you around about 50 points give or take. Now jumping over from the amulets that you can either obtain through quests or through just finding throughout the levels, now we're going to be going on to the boss Ergo amulets. These amulets can only be obtained by defeating certain bosses, and rather than trading in the rare Ergo for the weapon type, this time you'll be grabbing a tasty amulet. First one I'm going to be going over is going to be the Ghost Walk Amulet. This is for players who are like myself and have probably never played Sekiro, are absolutely awful at blocking, and that dodge button comes in handy sometimes, but sometimes it can get you absolutely massacred. With this now, the fury attacks that the enemies do can actually be dodged and avoided, rather than before where they kind of auto track you and still hit you in the face. Now with this on, you can avoid them, even though it does still take a bit of skill, I must admit. But for anyone who's a dodger rather than a parrier, or maybe you're a bit of both, this may well be one you want to try out on your build. Next up, and we have the Arm of God amulet. This is a really good amulet. If your playstyle is all about getting consecutive hits in, then I'd say this one is almost a must, as it's going to temporarily increase your physical damage upon a successful attack. Now I believe this stacks up to around about 4 times, and when I was testing it out, it seemed every time I was hitting something, I was getting around about 4 to 5% extra damage per strike, so probably all the way up to a maximum of around about 20%. As long as you're going for a fast playstyle and you know that you're going to be able to get multiple hits in, this is one that's going to be great on certain builds, probably those like your technique builds, or anytime you're putting something together with a slightly faster weapon type. Last but definitely not least, another one that I have been playing around with and I find myself constantly coming back and equipping, and that's going to be the Extreme Modification Amulet. This one is going to increase your weapon attack in proportion to the number of Fable slots you have. That does not explain it very well in the slightest. I thought as I was upgrading my Fable slots I was going to be doing more damage. Instead, it actually means however many Fable attack slots you have active. So for example, if you have 5 that are lit up because you haven't used them or spent them, then you're going to be doing a certain amount of extra damage. It worked out from my testing around about between 4 to 5% extra damage per Fable point that I had lit up. This works amazing for anyone who's going to be keeping hold of them, dwindling down the enemy's health or boss's health, say for example getting them into a stagger and then only spending them at certain points and trying to build them back up again. I personally found this to be one of the best amulets in the game, in the right playstyle, and it provided a whole bunch of extra damage. But yeah, they're going to be my top 10 picks. Let me know in the comments if you think there's anything that I've left off. No doubt there'll be a few boss ones that some people feel are amazing, so if you think I've missed something, I'd love to hear from you. But as always, hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out. For all things gaming, take care. I'll see you on next day.